I generally prefer more challenging games, but I can't help but enjoy the simplicity of games like Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers on the NES. It's a game that's appropriate for kids, but also can be enjoyed by adults. If you were a fan of the TV cartoon show, you'll be happy to see the star characters from the show here. Chip, Dale, Gadget, Monterey Jack, Zipper, and more all play a role here. Though you only control either Chip or Dale, and their differences are merely cosmetic. There's also an excellent 8-bit rendition of the classic Rescue Rangers theme song to deliver those nostalgic feels. The music and sound in these games are fantastic all around. The original game and its sequel are simple action platformers with some of the most tight responsive controls on an NES game. The controls are seriously immaculate. You feel like you are always fully in control of Chip or Dale. You walk, jump, and throw objects to make it through each stage, and there's generally a boss at the end of each one. Throughout the stages, there are an absurd amount of boxes you can pick up. Most of them contain nothing, but occasionally there will be an acorn for health, Zipper to grant temporary invulnerability, or a flower or a star which you can collect to eventually get a 1-up. No matter what, you can always use the box as a weapon or to interact with objects in the level like switches. Not only can you throw the box in any direction, but you can also hold down to crouch inside the box. When you're hidden inside the box, any enemy that stumbles into you is immediately destroyed. It's a little unintuitive, but something that will help deal with any of the more unpredictable enemies later in the game. In both of these games, you have 2 lives and 3 continues, and there is no password system. It isn't as bad as it sounds though, since both these games are pretty short and very easy. You'll beat them within an hour. Finally, both games have a unique addition to this action platformer genre, simultaneous co-op mode. It's fun, but it does have a downside. Friendly fire is always on, and it's unable to be activated. Throwing boxes now has the chance to stun your friend instead of hitting the enemy. And you can also pick up your friend and carry them throughout the entire stage if you like. They can't even do anything to escape the carry either. It's one of those co-op modes where you might end up hating your friend while playing it. The story in both games is centered on the same premise. Fat Cat is loose and causing trouble, and you need to stop him. There are short cutscenes after each stage which quickly move the plot along, and they occasionally contain tips on upcoming stages. Rescue Rangers 1 and 2 are very similar, but there are enough differences to discuss them separately. I'll start with the original. The original especially excels in stage design. In nearly every stage, there's a great sense of scale of the size of the chipmunks against the background. This helps drive home the perspective of the chipmunks as these tiny animals. I also like how most stages have multiple paths to take, an upper, middle, and lower route for many sections. This sense of scale and the multiple paths to take give the stages a certain depth to it. You also have some choice in which zones to play from the overworld, which can add to the replayability a little bit. However, most stages are a little too simple, and they're a bit homogeneous. You very rarely have any new mechanics to learn at a later level. The game is short enough that this really wasn't an issue for me anyways. I consider this a relatively easy game on the NES for many reasons. Although you only start with 2 lives and 3 continues, you are given 1-ups regularly throughout the game. Within each stage, you'll collect enough flowers and stars to be rewarded with a 1-up. And then at the end of each stage is a bonus event where you have a near guaranteed 1-up waiting for you in the top red box. Most of the enemies have very simple patterns, making it very easy to avoid them. And then there's more than enough boxes to just be able to wipe them right off the screen. All the bosses in this game also are very simple with minimal patterns to learn. There will be a red ball that you need to pick up, and you just throw it right in the boss's face. So you do that and occasionally avoid bad stuff. There really isn't much to these fights, as you'll see here. With many games, the sequel is a straight upgrade to the original. However, with Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, I think the original is a more enjoyable experience overall. In the sequel, the game is purely linear, the stages aren't designed as well, and many of the boss fights are extremely tedious and random number generator reliant. On top of that, since this game came out near the end of the NES lifecycle, the cartridge is very rare and very expensive. It definitely is not worth the money, just buy the first one. There really aren't many upgrades in the sequel either. You can throw the boxes diagonally now, and there's a power shot, but hell if I know how to consistently activate it. You can tell you're about to do a power shot when the box starts to flash in your hands. Then you throw it in that brief moment and it'll do double the damage of a regular box throw. In the original game, many of the stages had a great sense of scale with the various objects on the stage larger than the chipmunks, but not here in the sequel. The stages are pretty forgettable overall. And while I appreciate Capcom changing the boss fights to be a little more varied in the sequel, it just was not executed well. Instead of constantly being able to harm the bosses by throwing a red ball, you now have to wait for the boss to drop an item for you to throw back at them. That alone sounds fine, but what happens is the boss's patterns are random number generator reliant, so many times you're just standing around waiting for them to drop that item so you can toss it right back at them. And if you get a bad pattern, you might be stuck for 2 minutes in a fight that should have just been 30 seconds. Oh, and the last fight with Fat Cat is just the worst. The most difficult part is summoning the focus to deal with the tedious waiting around just to have a chance to deal damage again. You get a bomb on a timer, you need to accurately time to land on him as it is about to detonate. Too early or too late, and you miss. And then you need to wait even longer. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers 1 and 2, despite their few flaws like them being a little overly simplistic in spots, still stand out as excellent platformers on the NES. The controls, sound, and music are excellent in both games. The controls especially stand out as some of the most responsive I've ever felt while playing any game. They are seriously that good. I recommend the original over the sequel due to the stage and boss design issues I mentioned, as well as the price of the cart itself. There were 2 main reasons I wanted to review this series. 1 is to encourage others to try out this excellent game, and 2 is the theme song has been stuck in my head all week, and now it needs to be stuck in your head. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the music.